Imagine a world where gold could be created from common metals, where eternal life was within reach for those who mastered the secrets of the universe. This was the promise of medieval alchemy, a practice that blended science, magic, and philosophy into one mysterious art. But were the alchemists truly on the verge of discovering the key to immortality? Or was it all nothing more than a dangerous illusion? During the Middle Ages, alchemy wasn't merely a quest for wealth or power. It was a spiritual journey, an attempt to understand the mysteries of nature and of humanity itself. And at the center of this quest stood the legendary Philosopher's Stone, a magical object said to transform base metals into gold and grant eternal life to its possessor. But how did these medieval seekers attempt to achieve this dream? And who were the faces behind this mysterious art? The laboratories of these ancient practitioners were filled with bubbling concoctions, strange apparatuses, and cryptic symbols. Hunched over manuscripts written in codes only they could understand, these men and women risked everything, their reputations, their fortunes, and even their lives, in pursuit of the ultimate knowledge. Kings and queens sought their services, hoping to fill royal treasuries with alchemical gold. The Catholic Church viewed them with suspicion, fearing their work bordered on heresy. Yet the alchemists persisted, driven by a belief that they could unlock the fundamental secrets of creation itself. If you love history and want to unravel the mysteries of the great empires, like this video, subscribe to the Medieval Archives channel and don't miss a single episode. Join us as we delve into the shadowy world of medieval alchemy, where science and magic were one and the same, and where the boundaries between the possible and impossible blurred into legend. Deep in the mists of time, long before medieval castles dotted the European landscape, alchemy was already taking its first breaths. This fascinating blend of science, philosophy, and mysticism didn't simply appear during the Middle Ages, as many believe. No, the story of alchemy begins much earlier, in the shadow of the pyramids, beneath the Mediterranean sun, and in the ancient kingdoms of the East. In the land of pharaohs, ancient Egyptian practitioners developed sophisticated methods for working with metals, creating cosmetics, and preserving bodies through mummification. These early chemical practices were intertwined with religious rituals and spiritual beliefs about transformation and rebirth. The Egyptians called their art chem, meaning black earth, a reference to the fertile soil left by the Nile's flooding and possibly the origin of the word alchemy itself. Meanwhile, across the Mediterranean, Greek philosophers were developing their own theories about the nature of matter. Thinkers like Empedocles and Aristotle proposed that all substances were composed of four basic elements: earth, air, fire, and water. This fundamental idea would later become central to alchemical practice throughout the world. Far to the east, in ancient China, a parallel tradition was flourishing. Chinese alchemists sought the elixir of immortality and created the concept of balanced opposing forces, yin and yang. Their sophisticated understanding of chemical processes led to the invention of gunpowder, porcelain, and other innovations centuries before they appeared in the West. But it was during the Islamic Golden Age that alchemy truly flourished. Arab scholars preserved and translated ancient Greek and Egyptian texts, adding their own discoveries and experiments. The word alchemy itself comes from the Arabic alchimia. One of its greatest practitioners, Jabir ibn Hayyan, developed practical laboratory techniques still used today and emphasized the importance of experimentation alongside theory. When these Arabic texts finally reached medieval Europe in the 12th century, alchemy experienced a renaissance. European monks and scholars eagerly translated these works, fascinated by their promise of transmutation and spiritual enlightenment. In smoky laboratories, hidden in monasteries and castles, alchemists sought to transform base metals into gold, discover the universal solvent, and create the legendary Philosopher's Stone, believed to grant eternal life and perfect health. Yet for medieval alchemists, these pursuits were never merely about material wealth. Their work was deeply spiritual. They believed that by purifying metals, they mirrored the purification of their own souls. Each chemical process symbolized a step on the path to spiritual perfection. The transformation of lead into gold represented humanity's potential transformation from our base, earthly nature to a divine, perfect state. Did you know that Isaac Newton, the brilliant scientist who articulated the theory of gravity, was also deeply devoted to alchemy? This titan of the scientific revolution spent decades studying ancient alchemical texts and conducting countless experiments in his private laboratory. His notebooks reveal thousands of pages of alchemical research, written in code to protect these forbidden secrets. For Newton, alchemy wasn't simply about turning lead into gold or finding immortality. It was a key to understanding the fundamental laws that govern the universe. He believed that the same principles that caused metals to change their form might explain how planets moved through the heavens. This brilliant mind saw no contradiction between his mathematical work and alchemical pursuits. To him, they were different approaches to the same divine truths. As we look back through the centuries at these early scientists and philosophers, we can see that alchemy was never just a misguided quest for easy wealth. It was humanity's first systematic attempt to understand the material world and our place within it. The alchemists' laboratories, with their mysterious furnaces, intricate glassware, and carefully recorded experiments, laid the groundwork for modern chemistry. Their pursuit of transformation, both physical and spiritual, reflects our timeless human desire to transcend our limitations and understand the deeper mysteries of existence. At the very heart of alchemy's mysterious world lay an object of unparalleled wonder and fascination: the Philosopher's Stone. This wasn't a stone in the ordinary sense, but rather a legendary substance that represented the ultimate achievement in alchemical pursuit. The quest for this mythical material drove thousands of dedicated seekers across centuries, consuming lifetimes in its elusive pursuit. Imagine a substance so powerful it could transform the very nature of matter itself, turning base metals like lead into perfect gleaming gold. But the Philosopher's Stone promised even more extraordinary powers. It was said to produce the elixir of long life, a miraculous potion capable of curing any disease, reversing aging, and perhaps even bestowing the ultimate prize, immortality itself. For medieval minds, these weren't mere fantasies, but genuine possibilities waiting to be unlocked through proper knowledge and technique. The creation of the Philosopher's Stone demanded extraordinary dedication. Alchemists would spend decades hunched over bubbling flasks in dimly lit chambers, their faces illuminated only by the dancing flames of their furnaces. These determined practitioners followed intricate recipes passed down through ancient manuscripts, often written in deliberately obscure language and symbols to protect their sacred knowledge from the uninitiated. The process of creating the stone was known as the Great Work, or magnum opus. It typically involved a series of carefully sequenced chemical operations: calcination, dissolution, separation, conjunction, fermentation, distillation, and coagulation. Each step was imbued with spiritual significance, representing stages in the purification of both matter and the alchemist's own soul. The materials would change colors throughout the process, from black to white to yellow, and finally to a brilliant red, signifying completion. This red powder or substance was believed to be the Philosopher's Stone itself. The dangers were considerable. Many alchemists worked with highly toxic substances like mercury, arsenic, and sulfur. Their laboratories were filled with noxious fumes, and explosions were not uncommon. Some died from their experiments, poisoned by the very materials they hoped would grant them eternal life. Others faced persecution from religious authorities who viewed their work with suspicion, forcing them to work in secrecy, often in hidden basement laboratories or remote towers. Despite these risks, the allure of the Philosopher's Stone was irresistible. Kings and queens across Europe sponsored alchemists, hoping to fill their treasuries with alchemical gold. Holy Roman Emperor Rudolf II transformed his castle in Prague into a haven for alchemists, astrologers, and other seekers of arcane knowledge. The promise of unlimited wealth and eternal life proved too tempting to ignore. One fascinating tale comes from the life of Nicolas Flamel, a French scribe and manuscript seller from the 14th century. According to legend, Flamel stumbled upon a mysterious book filled with strange symbols and diagrams. After years of study and a pilgrimage to Spain, where he consulted with a Jewish scholar versed in ancient wisdom, Flamel claimed to have successfully created the Philosopher's Stone. Suddenly, this once modest scribe began funding hospitals and churches throughout Paris. Though he never claimed immortality outright, stories persisted that he and his wife Perenelle had faked their deaths and lived on for centuries. His house still stands in Paris today, adorned with curious alchemical symbols that continue to intrigue visitors. What's particularly fascinating about the pursuit of the Philosopher's Stone is how it blended the material and spiritual worlds. The transformation of lead into gold wasn't merely about creating wealth, it symbolized the potential transformation of the human soul from its base, impure state to one of spiritual perfection. Many alchemists believed that only a person of pure heart and intention could successfully create the stone. The physical processes in their laboratories mirrored an inner spiritual journey. The search for the Philosopher's Stone also drove significant scientific progress. In their meticulous experiments, alchemists developed crucial laboratory techniques and equipment still used in modern chemistry. They discovered elements, compounds, and chemical reactions previously unknown. Their careful observations and experiments, despite being framed in mystical language, laid important groundwork for the scientific method. As candlelight flickered across ancient texts and mysterious substances bubbled in glass vessels, these dedicated seekers weren't just chasing gold or eternal life. They were reaching for understanding of the universe's deepest secrets. Though we now view their work through the lens of modern science, we can still appreciate the profound dedication of these early scientists who devoted their lives to unlocking nature's hidden powers, believing that within their smoky laboratories lay the key to perfection itself. Throughout history, a select few alchemists rose above their secretive colleagues to achieve lasting fame, or perhaps infamy. These remarkable individuals pushed the boundaries of knowledge and left behind legacies that continue to captivate our imagination centuries later. One of the most revolutionary figures was Philippus Aureolus Theophrastus Bombastus von Hohenheim, a name so grand that he wisely chose to be known simply as Paracelso. This 16th century Swiss physician and philosopher turned the medical world upside down with his radical ideas. While conventional doctors still clung to ancient Greek texts, Paracelso marched into his first university lecture, threw the revered works of Galen and Avicenna into a bonfire, and declared that true knowledge came from experience, not dusty books. Paracelso believed that the human body was a chemical system that could be healed through chemical remedies. He introduced the use of minerals and metals in medicine at a time when most treatments involved herbs or bloodletting. His famous declaration that the dose makes the poison laid the groundwork for modern pharmacology. Though often ridiculed by the medical establishment of his day, his innovative approaches to treating wounds and diseases saved countless lives. He traveled across Europe, treating rich and poor alike, frequently angering local doctors with his unconventional methods and miraculous cures. Then there's the enigmatic Nicolas Flamel, whose story blurs the line between historical fact and fantastic legend. Unlike many alchemists who claim noble birth or extensive education, Flamel began as a humble bookseller and scribe in 14th century Paris. His life took an extraordinary turn when he reportedly acquired a mysterious book covered in strange symbols, a text he could not decipher for decades. According to the legend, Flamel eventually decoded the book with the help of a Jewish scholar familiar with ancient Hebrew mysticism. Following its instructions, he and his wife Perenelle supposedly succeeded in creating the Philosopher's Stone. Suddenly, this once modest shopkeeper began funding charitable works throughout Paris, building hospitals, churches, and shelters. Though he never openly claimed to have discovered the stone, whispers spread about his newfound wealth. What makes Flamel's story particularly intriguing is that he undeniably existed as a historical figure. Records confirm he was a real Parisian businessman who died in the early 15th century and left behind charitable foundations. His tombstone was displayed in the Museum of Cluny in Paris for centuries, yet after his supposed death, stories emerged of travelers encountering Nicolas and Perenelle in distant lands, apparently unchanged by the passage of time. Had they faked their deaths to escape the dangerous attention their discovery would attract? Did they truly achieve immortality? Flamel's legend grew across the centuries, culminating in his appearance in modern popular culture. Many readers first encountered his name in the pages of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, where he's described as a 600-year-old alchemist who created the only known Philosopher's Stone with his wife. His home in Paris still stands today, adorned with mysterious symbols that continue to intrigue visitors and scholars alike. Another towering figure was the Arabic alchemist Jabir ibn Hayyan, known in Western texts as Geber. Working in the 8th century, he developed experimental techniques and equipment still used in modern laboratories. Jabir's writings introduced the concept of elixir, what we now call the elixir, and his detailed experimental notes helped transform alchemy from mystical speculation to a practice grounded in careful observation. And did you know that Isaac Newton, the brilliant scientist who discovered gravity, was also a passionate alchemist? He spent countless nights conducting secret alchemical experiments in his Cambridge laboratory, far more time than he devoted to the mathematics and physics for which he's now famous. Newton's private notebooks contain over 1 million words on alchemy, often written in code to protect these forbidden secrets. He believed that understanding the transformation of metals would reveal the fundamental principles governing the universe. For Newton, there was no contradiction between his rigorous scientific work and his alchemical pursuits. Both were paths to understanding divine creation. So what do you think? Did some of these brilliant minds actually discover the Philosopher's Stone? Was Nicolas Flamel's extraordinary generosity simply the result of smart business dealings, or did he truly unlock the secret of transmutation? And if you're enjoying this deep dive into the mysterious world of medieval alchemy, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the Medieval Archives for more incredible stories from the past. Drop a comment below telling us whether you believe the Philosopher's Stone might have actually existed. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Among these legendary figures, we also find the remarkable Albertus Magnus, a 13th century Dominican friar who was one of the first to comment extensively on Aristotle's works on natural science. His encyclopedic knowledge earned him the nickname Doctor Universalis, the universal doctor. Though a devout churchman, he defended the study of alchemy as a legitimate pursuit of knowledge. His student, Thomas Aquinas, would later incorporate many of his teacher's ideas about natural philosophy into his own influential theological works. The mysterious legacy of these great alchemists continues to echo through the centuries, reminding us that the boundary between science and magic was once far less distinct than we might imagine today. Their relentless pursuit of knowledge, often at great personal risk, helped forge the path toward modern science while keeping alive the eternal human fascination with transformation and the hidden powers of nature. Step into the shadowy workshop of a medieval alchemist and you'd find yourself in a realm where science and mysticism blended seamlessly. These dedicated practitioners employed an astonishing array of techniques in their tireless quest for transformation and enlightenment. At the foundation of all alchemical work lay the ancient theory of the four elements: earth, air, fire, and water. Inherited from Greek philosophers like Aristotle, this elegant system proposed that every substance in our world, from the most precious gems to the human body itself, was composed of these four basic building blocks in different proportions. The alchemist's fundamental goal was to separate, purify, and recombine these elements in perfect harmony. The alchemical laboratory itself was a wonder to behold. Imagine walls lined with curious glass vessels of every shape and size, pelicans with their long curved necks for continuous distillation, alembics for capturing vapors, athanors, specialized furnaces that could maintain precise temperatures for weeks on end. These custom tools, many invented by the alchemists themselves, represent some of humanity's earliest specialized scientific equipment. One of the most important processes in the alchemist's repertoire was distillation, the art of heating substances to create vapor and then cooling that vapor back into purified liquid. While we might associate distillation primarily with alcohol production today, alchemists used this technique to create what they called quintessences, the purest spiritual essence of a substance. They believed these concentrates held extraordinary healing powers. Equally important was calcination, the intense heating of materials until they oxidized into a fine powder. Through this fiery trial, alchemists believed they were breaking substances down to their most basic form, removing impurities and preparing them for transformation. The resulting ash was thought to contain the purified elemental essence. Sublimation was another fascinating technique where solid materials were heated directly into vapor, bypassing the liquid state entirely, and then collected as they cooled and re-solidified. Alchemists used this method particularly with substances like mercury, sulfur, and arsenic, creating purified forms they believed held special powers. The mysterious process of fermentation held special significance. Witnessing how grape juice magically transformed into wine, or how bread dough mysteriously rose, alchemists saw in fermentation a perfect example of natural transformation. They applied similar principles to mineral substances, believing that metals too could grow and ripen under the right conditions. These ancient practitioners were also master metallurgists. They developed sophisticated techniques for testing the purity of gold and silver, creating alloys and manipulating metals in ways that often seem magical to outsiders. Their ability to change the color and properties of metals through chemical treatments sometimes created convincing illusions of actual transmutation. A particularly fascinating aspect of alchemical practice was the precise timing of operations according to celestial movements. Alchemists believed that the positions of planets and stars influenced chemical processes on Earth. An experiment begun under the wrong planetary alignment was doomed to failure. Many kept astronomical charts alongside their chemical notes, carefully planning their work when the heavens were most favorable. But this experimental pursuit came with tremendous risks. Many alchemists paid the ultimate price for their curiosity. Mercury vapors slowly poisoned countless practitioners, leading to tremors, memory loss, and eventually madness. A tragic end that led to the stereotype of the mad alchemist. Others succumbed to arsenic poisoning, their bodies gradually weakening as they handled these deadly compounds without understanding their dangers. The risk of explosion was ever present. Sealed vessels containing volatile substances would build up incredible pressure when heated. Without modern understanding of gas laws or pressure regulation, these vessels could become lethal bombs. One 14th century text describes an alchemist named Petrus Bonus, who was killed instantly when his laboratory exploded, destroying half his dwelling and leaving behind only fragments of his body among the chemical debris. Perhaps most poignant were the alchemists who inhaled toxic fumes for decades, slowly destroying their lungs and nervous systems while believing they were on the verge of discovering the elixir of life. The very substances they hoped would grant immortality were actually hastening their deaths. Yet despite these dangers, alchemists continued their work with remarkable dedication. They developed safety practices too, early versions of laboratory protocols. Some worked under primitive fume hoods or used specialized breathing masks filled with sponges soaked in vinegar or wine to filter toxic vapors. Others conducted the most dangerous operations outdoors or in specially ventilated chambers. What's truly remarkable is how many modern laboratory techniques evolved directly from alchemical practices. Distillation, filtration, crystallization, processes fundamental to today's chemical industry, were refined over centuries in those smoky medieval workshops. The carefully recorded observations of generations of alchemists, though framed in mystical language, contained genuine insights into chemical reactions and material properties. Even their failures proved valuable. When the German alchemist Hennig Brand boiled down gallons of urine in search of the Philosopher's Stone in 1679, he instead discovered phosphorus, a glowing, seemingly magical substance that would later prove crucial for matchmaking and fertilizer production. In their secluded workshops, surrounded by bubbling flasks and ancient texts, these adventurous souls pushed the boundaries of knowledge, often at tremendous personal risk. Their dream of perfect transformation may have remained elusive, but their techniques, observations, and innovative spirit helped forge the path toward modern chemistry and our scientific understanding of the material world. Though the elusive Philosopher's Stone remained forever beyond reach, the alchemist's quest left behind a treasure far more valuable than gold. Their legacy flows through the veins of our modern world in ways both obvious and subtle, transforming human knowledge just as they once hoped to transform base metals. When we step into a modern chemistry laboratory today, we're walking into a space directly descended from the alchemist's workshop. The specialized glassware, the careful measurement of substances, the precise control of temperature and timing, all these fundamental aspects of scientific practice were refined in those smoke-filled medieval rooms. The word laboratory itself comes from the alchemical term laboratorium, meaning workshop, a place of practical labor where theory met physical reality. Many of chemistry's founding fathers began their careers steeped in alchemical traditions. Robert Boyle, often called the first modern chemist, wrote extensively about alchemy before developing the scientific approaches that would eventually replace it. His insistence on precise measurement and experimental verification grew from his frustration with alchemy's vague terminology and secretive practices. Yet his fascination with material transformation remained deeply alchemical in spirit. Antoine Lavoisier, the brilliant French scientist whose work established the law of conservation of mass, built directly upon alchemical techniques while rejecting their mystical interpretations. His systematic approach to chemical reactions finally explained why lead could never truly become gold. Matter could change form, but never lose or gain mass through ordinary chemical processes. In medicine, alchemy's influence was revolutionary. Paracelso's radical idea that specific chemical remedies could target specific diseases challenged the ancient system of balancing bodily humors and introduced the concept of pharmacology. His controversial use of minerals and metals in medicine, carefully purified through alchemical methods, laid groundwork for medicinal chemistry. When you swallow an antibiotic pill today, you're benefiting from a pharmaceutical tradition that has its roots in the alchemist's quest to distill pure essences from natural materials. Perhaps most fascinating is how many actual discoveries emerged from alchemical research. Hennig Brand's search for the Philosopher's Stone led him to boil down massive quantities of urine, resulting in the discovery of phosphorus, a substance so seemingly magical it glowed in the dark. This element would later prove essential for fertilizer production, helping feed billions. Similarly, alchemists identified zinc, bismuth, and antimony while exploring the boundaries of metallic transformation. The apparatus we use for distillation today, from massive industrial columns to the humble home still, evolved directly from designs perfected by medieval alchemists, separating the spirit from wine and plants. Their quest to concentrate the essential nature of substances gave us techniques for creating everything from perfumes to gasoline. In the realm of ideas, alchemy's influence has been equally profound. Carl Jung, the pioneering psychologist, recognized in alchemy a perfect symbolic language for the transformation of the human psyche. The alchemical stages of nigredo, blackening, albedo, whitening, and rubedo, reddening, became powerful metaphors for psychological growth and integration. Jung saw in the alchemist's external search for transformation a perfect mirror of our internal journey toward wholeness. Literature and art have drawn endless inspiration from alchemy's rich symbolism. From Goethe's Faust to Frankenstein, from Harry Potter to countless fantasy worlds, the alchemist's dream of transformation and transcendence continually captures our imagination. The alchemical quest for the perfect union of opposites, male and female, sun and moon, spiritual and material, still resonates in stories exploring the human condition. Even our language bears the imprint of alchemical thought. When we speak of someone having a touch of genius or being a natural catalyst for change, when we talk about refining our ideas or distilling the essence of an argument, we're unconsciously drawing on alchemical concepts. The very idea that we can transform ourselves through education and experience, becoming something more refined and valuable through life's trials, echoes the alchemical belief in the perfectibility of all things. In perhaps their most enduring legacy, the alchemists preserved something precious that purely mechanical science sometimes loses: a sense of wonder and spiritual significance in the material world. They saw in chemical reactions not mere rearrangements of atoms, but meaningful transformations reflecting deeper cosmic patterns. This holistic vision that the material world contains and reflects spiritual truth offers a valuable counterbalance to purely reductionist thinking. When today's scientists search for unified theories to explain the universe, when medical researchers seek the keys to extending human lifespan, when philosophers ponder the relationship between consciousness and matter, they are in many ways continuing the great work begun in those ancient laboratories. Though the language and methods have changed dramatically, the essential human desire to understand and perfect both our world and ourselves remains remarkably consistent across the centuries. The alchemists may have failed to create physical gold, but their true legacy lies in something far more valuable. They helped forge the golden key of systematic inquiry that would eventually unlock nature's deepest secrets. Their passionate pursuit of knowledge, their willingness to experiment at the boundaries of understanding, and their belief that humans could comprehend and harness nature's transformative powers helped create the modern world in which we live. In their quest for the Philosopher's Stone, they discovered something perhaps even more magical: the human capacity for wonder, investigation, and endless reinvention. As we draw our journey through the misty realms of medieval alchemy to a close, we're left with a profound appreciation for these dedicated seekers who worked at the crossroads of science and spirit. What might appear to modern eyes as a curious blend of laboratory science and mystical magic was in truth something far greater: the embodiment of humanity's eternal quest to understand both the universe and ourselves. The shadowy workshops where alchemists labored day and night, the coded manuscripts passed secretly between masters and apprentices, the dangerous experiments conducted by candlelight, all of these speak to something timeless in the human spirit. We have always yearned to transform, to transcend our limitations, to discover the hidden principles governing reality. Though the Philosopher's Stone eluded generations of searchers, Their pursuit left behind something perhaps more valuable than mountains of gold or endless years of life. In their passionate journey toward understanding, the alchemists created the foundations upon which modern science would later build. Their failures and triumphs, their innovations and discoveries, all contributed to humanity's collective knowledge. Perhaps there's a deeper wisdom in the alchemical quest that still resonates today. The alchemists understood that true transformation, whether of metals, medicines, or the human soul, requires both practical work and spiritual insight. Their holistic approach reminds us that the material and spiritual worlds are not separate domains, but deeply interconnected aspects of a single reality. In our own lives, we continue to seek our own versions of the Philosopher's Stone, that magical catalyst that might transform our ordinary experiences into something extraordinary. We search for meaning, for understanding, for ways to turn the lead of everyday existence into the gold of a life well lived. And like the alchemists before us, we often discover that the true treasure lies not in reaching some final destination, but in the journey itself, in the knowledge gained, the growth experienced, and the mysteries encountered along the way. The story of alchemy teaches us that sometimes the most valuable transformations happen not in our external circumstances, but within ourselves. Each experiment, each failure, each new insight changes us, refining our understanding and expanding our awareness. In pursuing external goals, we often undergo internal alchemy, far more precious than any material reward. So the next time you encounter alchemy in a fantasy novel or medieval tale, remember that behind the magical imagery lies a very real human story. The story of men and women who believed that nature's secrets were waiting to be discovered, that matter could be perfected, and that human beings could participate in the universe's grand process of transformation. Their dream continues to inspire us. Their methods continue to influence us, and their spirit of inquiry continues to drive us forward into new frontiers of knowledge. If you've enjoyed this exploration of medieval alchemy, the mysterious Philosopher's Stone, and the brilliant minds who devoted their lives to unlocking nature's deepest secrets, be sure to leave a like on this video and share it with friends who appreciate the magical blend of history, science, and mysticism. Subscribe to the Medieval Archives for more fascinating journeys into the Middle Ages, from castle sieges to cathedral building, from plague doctors to powerful queens. We're dedicated to bringing the medieval world vividly to life. What hidden histories would you like us to explore next? Drop your suggestions in the comments below. And remember, just like the alchemists who came before us, sometimes the greatest discoveries happen when we're willing to venture into the unknown, to question conventional wisdom, and to see the world with fresh eyes. Until our next historical adventure, may your own quest for knowledge be ever fruitful. See you in our next video.